prophecy come closer to fulfillment in this year dread times. Why should this be? And as we fight one another with the power and the glory, the kingdom goes to waste, and every drop of blood we taste. I feel we own this race, yeah. I feel we own this race. Can't build no foundation for a if and a but. Are we building a nation, or are we building a hut? And every time you ask with some old friend, you hear say just last night he meet a sad, sad end. And if you talk too loud, and if you walk too proud, watch where you lay your head. Borrow the dread, well to red. Can't build no dreams and a fuss and a fight. Me no care who I do it, just say that no right. And as we fight one another with the power and the glory, your kingdom goes to waste, and every drop of blood we taste, I feel we own this grace.
Every drop of blood we taste, and we own this grace. Sound from the man called Ernest Smith, man who prophecy. That song was always a big piece of my thing. And just want to say good evening and welcome if you're joining us for the first time. This is the Jamaica Mix. I'm your host, Mr. B. And this evening we are going to look at an issue that has been raging through. I want to just say welcome to Miss Opal Morris, a regular guest on the program, follower of the program, and regular contributor to the program. And again, good evening, Opal. Share the stream with your friends, bring them on, because Jamaican, we have issues and we want to address these issues, put them out in the front there so that people get an understanding of where we are. And today we're gonna take a look at a development, if you will, that been watching. A little disappointed, if you ask me, in terms of just this whole integrity commission situation. And I wanna put some topics out there, if you will, and invite some exchanges as we look at this issue. And the biggest piece of it is the accountability issue, the misuse, clearly what is now coming across as a direct misuse of power on the part of the members of the current administration in Jamaica. We're at a point, it appears, that people don't even want to make a comment or to add their voices to any issue because of the potential of this to create serious negative backlashes on the members of the public who are not there, right? Who believe that their voices are being silenced, if you will. In fact, the biggest story coming out now is a case that is now essentially been raised at the Supreme Court in downtown Kingston by none other than the Honorable Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness. And, reading from directly from the Gleaner newspaper story that was published today. It says Prime Minister Andrew Holness has asked the Supreme Court to strike down a law used by the Integrity Commission to probe public officials for illicit enrichment. According to the Gleaner report, the Prime Minister calls the action unconstitutional. A ruling in the head of the government's favor could affect investigations into 8 sitting parliamentarians. And from all indications, these 8 parliamentarians are on the government side of the ledger. Holness also wants the court to gut unspecified provisions of the 2017 Integrity Commission Act, given the lack of fairness, his words, impartiality, and independence in the exercise of the functions of the divisions and the commission as presently structured. Now, I'm quoting directly from the newspaper report. It says, those 2 are among 21 declarations or orders that Holness is seeking in an application to the Supreme Court to have an Integrity Commission investigation report into his financial affairs rejected as unlawful and unfair. Now, the Integrity Commission's report, dated August 30, 2024, was released by the House of Representatives on September 17th of this year. According to the Prime Minister in his submission to the court, and I'm quoting, I believe that the tabling of the report was intended to embarrass and cause harm to me, and as such was made for an improper purpose and in bad faith to prejudice and harm me, he said, alleging further that it sought to impute criminal and unethical conduct to me and the other applicants. The application by Holness, his company, Imperium Investments Holdings Limited, and related entities, Positive Media Solutions and Positive Jamaica Foundations Limited, a charity, for permission to seek judicial review, was filed on September 30. That was Monday of this week. A judicial review allows the court to scrutinize processes used by a public authority to make decisions. Now, the respondents in this this suit, if you will, this matter, are 2 senior executives of the commission, and this is the Director of Information and Complaints, Mr. Craig Beresford, who is the first respondent, and the Director of Investigations, Mr. Kevin Stevenson, the second respondent, and the commission itself, who is the third respondent. Holness wants the court to reject the report as unlawful, unfair, and premised on an unconstitutional provision in the Corruption Prevention Act. The probe into alleged illicit enrichment, where one's assets are disproportionate to earnings, grew out of his 2021 income filings that he submitted on time in March 2022, and the probe started in May of 2023. Now, so that's just to provide the background, right? Now, against the background of all of this development, it begs a question of what is it that the Prime Minister is trying to do. Now, equally, one wants to look at what is the mandate, if you will, of the country's Integrity Commission. Because I think to be able to understand this thing, right, one needs to take a look at the Integrity Commission and what is its role. Now, the Integrity Commission, the Integrity Commission Act, was signed into law on the 23rd day of October of 2017. And I'm always going to go back to basics in my ventilation of these issues. It was signed by the Governor General on Mr. Patrick Allen on the 23rd day of October of 2017, exactly 8 months after the Jamaica Labour Party became the government of the country, Jamaica. So this Integrity Commission was in effect raised up under his own administration. Now, the purpose of the commission, let me go back to that, is to promote and enhance standards of ethical conduct for parliamentarians, public officials, and other persons by consolidating laws relating to the prevention of corruption and the award, monitoring, and investigating of government contracts and prescribed licenses, and to provide for the establishment of a single body to be known as the Integrity Commission to promote and strengthen the measures for the prevention, detection, investigation, and prosecution of acts of corruption. Now, the act went further to be in terms of and I don't want to get into a whole heap of the discussion on the details of the Integrity Act, but essentially its provisions with respect to public officials. One of the requirement as a public official is that you submit your declaration of your assets and liabilities on an annual basis. And the commission and its investigative body pores over these documents, and if there are gaps in their opinion, their responsibility is to seek clarification, get answers, revisit the report, and to either, if the answers are forthcoming, if you will, and the information explains the gaps satisfactorily, then they will sign off on these declarations. Now, in fairness to the Prime Minister, while it is unlawful to not submit these declarations or to submit them late, that is never his problem. He has always submitted his declarations on time. It appears, though, from this the trail of the whole issue relating to the Integrity Commission, that there is some unexplained differentials between the period 2019 and 2021. Those returns, there are discrepancies. And from the trail of the report that was submitted in Parliament, because while this matter has been out in the public domain, where there's been, everybody been throwing their views, their thoughts on the issue, what is clear is that it gave the impression, first of all, that the Integrity Commission seemed to have been investigating the Prime Minister behind his back, when the findings that were released indicates otherwise, that Prime Minister had always been aware of the issues, and in fact the tardiness with which his own responses to the questions that raised by the Integrity Commission has delayed the assessment of his returns, and the inability to explain the differentials in his wealth over a particular period of time has been the sticking point. Now, this is exactly the reason why the commission exists. And so for the Prime Minister to be now determining that he is going to seek redress in the courts because as he puts it, the report, the tabling of the report was intended to embarrass and cause harm to him, and as such, it was the Integrity Commission is operating in bad faith. Now, the Integrity Commission is there to provide the same guardrails for every single public official, right, that is engaged in Jamaica. It's not like, say, there is a thing against him per se relative to anybody else. The reason why his issue is on the front burner is because it's there. He is one of the he's a chief public servant in the parliament. And so the fact that there is unexplained differentials, these are questions that has to be answered. Is either you answer the question or you don't. You answer the question and you let the chips fall where they may, or you don't and you equally allow the chips to fall where they may in the same way, right? This is essentially an attempt, in my mind, to muzzle the commission, to take away the authority that the commission has. Now, if we cannot trust our own institutions to provide the requisite policing that is necessary within the structure of how Jamaica works, they might as well be just throwing the towel, right? Now, let me tell you something. There is a view afoot, and I've heard it multiple times over, that the administration in Jamaica has consistently been engaging in behaviors that represents the misuse of power. In my opinion, no, let me make this point before. The courts are there for the protection and defense, to be used for protection and defense by every single Jamaican, right? And so the Prime Minister have a right, if him feel, to take the matter to court. He does. So we're not taking that away from him. The question, though, that one should ask is why there are what is it, 63 parliamentarians in the House in Jamaica, and maybe another 200 civil servants who are impacted by this role that the Integrity Commission is required to play. The purpose of this institution is to provide the guardrails upon which we enjoy good government. That's their role, right? Their role, they can fabricate information and represent it. If that is what is being said is happening here, well, fine. But the question is, we have seen this kind of response from the government on multiple occasions, right? Multiple occasions. There is an almost a behavior that seems to suggest that the government feel that while we can create laws to corral Jamaicans, them, members of this administration, are exempt from the tentacles of these lawmakers, these governance bodies, if you will, right? Case in point. Some years ago, when the administration was just being seated, 2017. There was a closeness in the balance of power, if you will, in the House. I think there was just one seat that separated the JLP and the People's National Party. So the PNP must have had what was it, 31 seats, and the government had 32. So it had a 1 seat majority. And of course, as the government, they are the ones who name the members of the Senate. And so what happened is that the then Prime Minister at the time, who was Andrew Holness, and so Arthur Williams revealed that Holness had, in 2016, asked members of the Senate to sign undated resignation letters. Undated resignation letters. These letters would give the Prime Minister the power to remove senators at will. This actually happened 2016. Remember, it was in 2016, Holness found himself. He was now the opposition leader after having lost an earlier election a couple of years earlier. And so it said it gave the Prime Minister the power to remove senators at will without any reason. And the move, when it became public, was criticized heavily, right? The members of the public jumped in, waded into this issue. The general view, and I shared those views. I shared the view at the time that the Senate is an independent body, if you will. In other words, if you are putting this kind of muzzling on the Senate members, what you're doing is removing their independence, right? And the purpose of the Senate is to provide checks and balances on the executive, right? Now, of course, the matter went to court, and it was one of the first instances because, of course, the Prime Minister challenged Williams, and there were two senators at the time who actually took the matter to court, and it went all the way. It went to the Constitutional Court because it was a breach of the Constitution, and over time, the Williams and his colleague prevailed, and so it basically declared that Holness's behavior was unconstitutional, right? Actions such as that was designed to undermine the autonomy of the Senate, to create a risk of, treating them as an extension of the executive branch of the government. And you can't do that. You can't do that. And so, and the court stood by the two gentlemen. And so they prevailed in the courts. Now, it basically represented and provided an indication as to either A, that our Prime Minister was not too au fait with how the Constitution worked, and that clearly you go into court, you need to sit down and work out whether or not there's merit to the issue that you're planning to take to the court. And so there was another case which developed within a year or so afterwards, and that was the issue of the state of emergency. the use of the state of emergency as a everyday crime fighting tool was again another issue that was taken to the courts. And again, I think the PNP decided to challenge, because the PNP, who now is as opposition, is defending the position that the use of the state of emergency as an everyday crime fighting mechanism is unconstitutional, right? And again, of course, the Prime Minister decided to challenge that in the courts. And again, they lost. Now, to the whole idea of the state of emergency is when we have issues that are public emergencies, right? To use it, to use the mechanism as everyday crime fighting tool basically gives the police and soldiers emergency powers, which allows them to scrape up anybody, right? Police come and kick down your door, drive away, carry you go to some detention center and hold you there for in perpetuity without trial. You know, them don't carry you in front of a judge so you can be charged for something, and then that them have the right to hold it. And the court determined that that was unconstitutional. In fact, the government's attorney general also raised an appeal to the public in general, calling for the suspension of people's rights, right? To take away the rights of certain members of our population as a part of the effort of fighting crime. Now, the police have enough laws from the books, give the police the equipment and the training and whatever to do the job that is required. And instead of trying to go these unconstitutional means. So what is happening here is that we have a government that is not unprepared to try to use the courts, right, to manipulate the court system in an effort to get what they want. And it is against this background that we find that there are a lot of Jamaicans who, whereas, back in the day, things not right, Jamaicans would have get up and protest. Jamaicans would have write letters to the editor, come on the talk radio, and raise hell. You go down to Jamaica now, nobody don't want to speak about anything. Nobody wants to talk about anything, because the view is, if you criticize the government, there is a likelihood that you're now going to be targeted. As one man said to me, he said, boy, you live a foreign in it, you don't have to deal with them things, I don't know, so, right? The man, them have a way for come after you, mess up your business, interfere, threaten your freedom, right? And then, of course, remember, 40% of Jamaicans are walk around with mental illness, and a lot of them buy into this hero worshipping and the politics. So if you criticize Prime Minister, man, I'll come here and shoot you, because him feel, you pressure the leader, like, pressure the leader, them kind of thing, right? That's the nature of the country where we live in. And so, you want to address these issues. Jamaicans, if you decide that this is the way you're going to operate, you're going to live the rest of your life in fear, right? There is a way to change the situation, but that time don't come yet, right? The problem is that the more Jamaicans who choose to remain silent, to remove themselves from the system, is the more strength you give to people who are of this kind of persuasion, where they want to use the system to their own, to realize their own personal objectives. So it's no longer about governing Jamaica, creating the kind of environment that, provides opportunities for a majority of Jamaicans. That's not where we are. And unfortunately, because so many people have chosen to remain silent, we now find ourselves in a situation where, even the institutions that are there, right? If those institutions decide to do their jobs, they too, and those who populate those institutions become targets, right? Now, again, we live in an environment, global environment, where influence peddling is big business. Nobody is saying that the Prime Minister is a thief or a criminal. Nobody is saying that. What is happening here is that there is a body established to provide probity, and they are doing their jobs, right? The membership of this particular organization is doing its job, providing the probity. Mr. Prime Minister, we are unable to determine with any kind of degree of certainty as to the nature of your assets, right? There is a ballooning of your assets, and we need an explanation. A simple thing that, right? A simple thing that. It's not like, say, we pick out just one person. Under the law, this is what they are required to do. And so, if in the pursuit of, the process of doing their jobs, them have to come and get some information. You have a right, you have a responsibility as the head of the administration to comply. Because it's a compliance issue, right? Now, if the people have to come to you 5, 6, and 7, and 8 times to get the same information, it is a suggestion that you are not exactly cooperating with the investigation. And so, if those efforts are deemed by the competent authority as frustrating its effort, they have all right under the law. They have that right to refer the matter to a different tribunal, if you will. Right? The Financial Investigative Division, they're not doing anything illegal. The terms under which the Integrity Commission operates, the law provides them with that as a tool to dig further, because within that body of the Financial Investigative Division, there are a different level of expertise, right? And that's what they're doing. I am not seeing where the members of the commission is going after the PM, right? As Opal says, as a leader, he should be an example to the citizens of the country he's leading by doing the right thing. Absolutely. There's only one way that you can deal with this issue, and that is the right way. Comply. The people ask you for documentation. You can't give them half of the documentation and expect them to accept that and move on, because it's an accounting tracking that they are doing, and in accounts, all accounts have to balance before you take it to the final report, right? So if they are looking at a trial balance, a ledger, and they are looking at bank entries, they are looking at bank entries, some of which is in the ledger, but there are some other items on the bank statement which is not reflected in the ledger. They have a right to ask for an explanation, right? If you don't have nothing to hide, if you have done absolutely nothing wrong, you are not engaged in any kind of behavior activity that fractures the law, then you shouldn't have a problem, Mr. PM. That's how I see it. Right? What is going on here is an embarrassment to all of us as Jamaicans. Right? Because what we're saying is that our Prime Minister is behaving in a manner that is suggesting that he is above providing any accountability to the very institution that his own government has established. Anything can go so? Think about that. Think about that. Right? Because remember, there are 8 parliamentarians who are impacted by the same non-compliance issue. So far, we're only hearing about 1, right? And we're only hearing about 1 because, and this is an issue that we ventilated in a previous stream, that the structure of the parliament in terms of the Speaker of the House and the staffing of the speakership, because it's the Speaker of the House that marshals the presentation of these documentations, right? And so one could argue that by virtue of this, there's complicity within the system. And so the Speaker, who is a member of the party and the wife of the Prime Minister, they wasn't allowing these matters to get to the floor of the House for the kind of discussion that we are now having, right? And somewhere along the way, earlier this year, all of this was sort of sorted out. And so now we have the first set of reports that is coming forward. And this one deals specifically with the Prime Minister. So we don't hear about the other, we don't even know if the Prime Minister is one of the 8, right? The Integrity Commission had cited 8 parliamentarians for what they term illicit enrichment. And they use the term illicit enrichment because what it said is that the change in the individual's asset position, right, could not be explained by any changes in income over the period of time, right? It's a different thing if you say, boy, the man, I sit down now upon $10-20 million in a bank account, right? You could easily say, but, government minister get a pay raise the other day of in excess of $10-12 million each, right? So if a man earn $4 million, the average cabinet minister now I make about $18 million a year. So if we do an asset thing this year, and we see a man have $20 million in a bank account, you don't really have no grounds, because that $20 million, there was the windfall in terms of the pay increase. And we're not talking about the increase, because that's another discussion right now. What I say is that by virtue of current income, you could have easily make the argument there. But prior to 2023, when the pay was 5 and 6 million, man show up with some everlasting bank balance that before it never debuted. There is no basis for this kind of money. So did you have a situation where somebody in your family dead and left a windfall and it drop off a shoulder, a head, and drop on your shoulder? If that is the case, fine. But make we see the paperwork so we can sign off on it. Right? If that is not the case, then the question of where the money come from is one that needs to be answered. And a rocket science that, that are just the facts, right? If you cannot explain where this wealth come from, then maybe you need to answer to something else. Then there is the same commission took a position that two of the companies that the PM has a relationship is a director, part owner of. There are some transactions that them have some questions on, and from the run of the conversation, they have not been able to get answers to those questions. This is not anybody trying to tear down the Prime Minister. If we consider ourselves as people of, a country of laws, right? If we consider that, right? Then basically what we should be doing is follow the law. There's no two ways about that, right? There is no two ways about that. And so by bringing this matter out into the public domain in the way that we have done, what we are doing is essentially put unnecessary pressure. Is either we want to operate, consistent with the rule of law, or we don't. A straight thing, right? And so I am dumbfounded. The other day when this thing broke out and the conversations were raging, I remember Prime Minister made a comment that he might instruct his attorneys to, essentially, you're trying to sue people who are offering commentary. Nobody is suggesting that the Prime Minister is in no bandolo business. Well, me certainly not. I don't have no information to support that, so I wouldn't make those kind of arguments. What the problem is that we have taken a position that say you're above any criticism, right? And that can't work. That can't work. So, this thing of subjecting everything now to the use of power, right? Problem with when we take these kind of positions is that we are eroding the structure on which our democracy is built. And so when you start to look at the multiple of other issues, take for example, there are at least 3 seats in the Jamaican Parliament that are now vacant, right? The right of Jamaicans to representation in Parliament is a constitutional right, right? And so when the government don't host a by-election and host the by-election on time, right? What it does is that it reduces it reduces the effectiveness of our democratic process, right? Delays in holding by-elections denies people of their right to representation, and it weakens the democratic process. Now, some people see it as a strategy to preserve political power at the expense of the electorate right. Well, let me put it another way. Some people argue why only the government can call an election or prime minister. And so if the prime minister no feel say it's a good time to call the election, him not have to do it. Now there is a presumption in the Westminster model, the practice of democracy, that people honor, right? And that people are honorable, right? And that this honor will go through the system. But the reality is that, by delaying these elections, what you do is manipulate the process, because you delay because you probably figure that either you're strong enough in the community where the election is due that you don't need to hold no election, or you only go use the election on a strategic basis, like what happened on Monday. Monday was a case in point. That particular constituency has some 42 or 43,000 people on the register of voters. Unfortunately, the PNP decides that them now contest the election. I don't know how them explain that. People are trying to think, but me not buy the explanation. Let me put it that way. But be that as it may, only 5,080 people voted in that election. That's about 11% of the slate of voters available to vote. So the man who is now the MP for that area was elected by a minority out of the constituency. Now, the election is a foregone conclusion. But for some reason, it appears that a portion of us as Jamaicans have decided to depart from participating in the electoral process. And the more of us that do that, is the greater the opportunity for those who find themselves in power to operate with this kind of impunity that we're seeing going on here. Right? Let me make this point clear, that a functioning democracy operates on the right of the people who are within that democracy to participate in the process, to make a mark on an electoral ballot and choose their representative. And the opposition leader is complicit in his own contribution to the erosion of the democratic process when you decide that you now participate in an election, right? I don't care what the argument is, the political stratagem and all of that. The reality is that you need to allow the voters the opportunity to go and express themselves, right? The other side is we are seeing this thing of threatening people, right? Man get up on social media and him criticize the government, and before you know it, police have knocked on your door, right? Some of them kind of out hard and outlandish, but lock up people for cuss bad, right? If a man tell you about it, what's it? Foolishness that. We believe that this is the way to show your teeth, make your teeth, you're strong. And what we're doing is forgetting that a functioning democracy depends on the right to freedom of expression. When government trying to prosecute individuals who criticize them policies or criticize them action, what it is doing is that it is representing itself as a serious threat to democracy and civil liberties, right? This kind of behavior have a very, very damaging, chilling effect on the freedom of speech. If citizens fear prosecution for speaking out against the government, what it does is that it creates this climate of fear, and it discourages meaningful public debate and dissent, which are essential for holding people in power to account. I am of the view that the current administration has successfully manipulated itself into behaving in this manner and getting away with it. I hear a particular media host the other day went to town criticizing the opposition for doing what they're supposed to do, and is to oppose. No, this is the press is considered as part of what you call it, the third estate, the guardrails that help keep things flowing, right? And when we allow media houses, first of all, our media is the pits, because nobody is providing any kind of journalistic the kind of journalism that is practiced. Nobody is diving in to investigate these things. What we do is whatever is represented, the Prime Minister said this, you just regurgitate it. Nobody looks at the intent of the words. What is the hidden meanings? No, there's no such thing. There's no investigation, right? And then there is the threat to their civil liberties. Threatening prosecution for criticism weakens civil society organization, it weakens the media, and activists who are essential in highlighting government abuse and advocating for transparency. At the rate that we are going, we shouldn't be surprised. A friend of mine called me this morning and she said she'll read the newspaper report that the Prime Minister is suing the Integrity Commission and its key officers. And I listen to her and I say, but Mom, you don't have no talk. When was the last time you voted in an election? Right? The minute we take ourselves away from the process, refuse to participate, the minute you don't, you are now unprepared to say your piece, right? What you're doing is you're playing into these people's hands, right? It's easy for governments to become authoritarian or totalitarian. We see it up here where Mr. Bushy head man run for president after him have 30 odd convictions behind him. How that happening in a God name, I don't know. And America make itself up as the big bastion of democracy. The man for their prison, but he might run for president, right? And this is the man who basically want to tell you, say, I run for president because me want to get rid of them thing but run my name. And there is a kind of a resemblance, if you will, to what is going on here politically. You see some vestige of that playing out in Jamaica, right? The threat to sue people because them criticize you, right? At that rate, then it's only a matter of time before man get up and say, boy, watch out. Me just go, nobody with no more election, right? Prime Minister for life. And we're going to take it. What I'm seeing taking place in Jamaica, people, is that the principles on which democracy had existed in the island have been significantly eroded, right? Collectively, when you look at all of these issues, they point to the potential authoritarian tendencies where government may be attempting to consolidate power at the expense of the democratic process. Now, we see it if you look at the way how there's this infusion of a lot of former military personnel into government institutions or different levels of government, and you kind of wondering about this quasi militarizing of agencies of the state, right? Clearly, the police, the prime minister is the minister of defense, so the Jamaica Defense Force him have that at his disposal, right? But granted, them not have police powers, but if you call a state of emergency, you can put them out on the road. We have to be careful, very careful about this creep towards totalitarianism, right? And why is this concerning? Erosion of the one we're looking at the suspension of people's civil liberties, right? We're looking at the issue of the erosion of democracy. Actions that circumvent constitutional or democratic norms weakens Jamaica's democratic framework. While, yes, as a PM, if you feel that somebody wrong you, go to the court. But then, before we go to the court, let us determine, is the Integrity Commission doing their job? Are they doing anything that is outside of the scope of the jobs that they're supposed to do, right? We need to deal with it. We also need to remember that these agencies are there to provide for the maintenance of transparency in the way how the government operates, right? And so when we attack these agencies, what we are doing is that we are attacking the heart of our democratic system, right? Now, I'm not commenting on the case that is before the Supreme Court. I'm prepared to wait until the law lords make a ruling, but I am yet to determine from the little that I've seen, and I have a copy of the 170-odd page report, and I don't see anything contained in that report that suggests that the government, the Integrity Commission rather, was doing anything, right? And let me answer. Mehdi asked a question: if the good or bad, if the report isn't supposed to be tabled in Parliament, and the answer to the question, Mehdi, is yes. it is that's how the system works. The 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 Integrity Commission peruse the documentation to support the 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 information contained in the statutory declaration, and once they've gone over it, they present it to the Parliament, and it's following the parliamentary procedures, if you will. So the suggestion that the thing was, because that was one of the things that I wondered about, that taking this thing to the courts, because it was discussed in Parliament, it was presented to Parliament. Those are the rules, right? Those are the rules. And so if we are going to say that these rules don't apply, because essentially what the Prime Minister by his action is suggesting to Jamaica and Jamaicans is that the rules don't apply to him. And if the rules don't apply to him, then what happens to the members of his cabinet? Because he's a cabinet minister. And so if it not apply to him, then clearly it not apply to his cabinet ministers either. And so it begs the question then, so what is the purpose of the Integrity Commission? We don't know if there are members in the government of Jamaica who are getting paid monies by people outside of Jamaica who have ill intentions, right? To utilize the leverage that them have on these people that are in their pay to do their bidding, right? That's what we have the Integrity Commission to look at. And so when they make a determination that there are people there who are fracturing the law, then the law must take its course, right? It's either you prosecute them. For example, you can be a Jamaican running a business in a Jamaica that your accounting is showing you're a government officer, whether you're a prime minister, member of parliament, or just a big civil servant, right? You are, as a civil servant, you are in a business where you are a director, a senior director of an entity, right? And that entity is trading in millions of dollars a year. Millions of dollars. Your accounts show that, right? Your bank statement, actually, because we audit the company, so we audit the bank statement as well. But you don't file no tax return, or you file a tax return that says zero. So the question that must ask is, so what was the source of these revenues that were running through your operation and is being recorded in your bank statement, right? And so did this entity engage in activities that are taxable activities? Now remember, these are not listed companies that can say that they are benefiting from tax holidays. This is a private company that is two man and a dog on the shares, right? And so if you never pay no taxes, when them and them look on their accounts, right? And them look on your tax report, your zero tax return, or you file a nil tax return. Them have to submit that that report to the tax administration department, because the tax administration department cannot not do anything, because the same way where somebody who is not connected to the government, if you make 5 cents, they want 1.5 cents out of it. You have to pay your taxes. So are we saying that because you are a member of the government and you are in business that you don't have to pay no taxes? Is that how it works? And are you drawing salary and income from these companies? And if so, are you paying taxes on that income? That's what it is. So, and then, of course, the investigative aspect now comes in. Because we're not saying nobody a thief or them a criminal, but there is a necessity for an investigation. So we make sure say everybody is above board. Right? That's the job. That's the job. But Prime Minister said, he want the law to be repealed. I've never seen anything like this in my life. And I am not a young boy. A bird of my age is not a chicken. Right? So we have some work to do as Jamaicans. I'm challenging everybody out there. You know, tune in on this stream here. Share it first of all with your friends. You know, don't sit down by your hand and your voice. We need to sensitize others, because it's when we're not looking that things going wrong. That's all I have to say, right? So, you know, let's see what happens over the course of the next couple of weeks. One man said maybe the PM will do that to see if he can stall out if the legal review, the judicial review, take the next 6 to 9 months. Then there's a good chance that by the time the election, and you know, me just give you what me get, right? Me don't really care about election or not. What me care about is the probity, that we need to encourage this probity. No person is above the law. None. If you are not doing what you're supposed to be doing, then you must be prepared to deal with the consequences, right? If you pray for rain, you must be prepared to deal with the mud and the dirty water, right? Remember, and I leave you guys with this note, the Integrity Commission was brought into effect. This iteration of the Integrity Commission was brought into place by the current administration in Jamaica. And so to see that, because it is the Prime Minister, the leader of the government, is the one who is in its crosshairs. And rather than cooperate with the investigators, what you would have preferred them do is do investigate, change the law. They're not supposed to ask me no question. They're not supposed to probe in my business, right? You know, in essence, what you're looking at is, let us dismantle this entity. I inform it. It's a good thing. Now, am I here to say that, you know, listen, you're Jamaican, you're either, if you are an active Jamaican citizen in a public life, when election come, one would hope that you are voting an election. But you can't deal with people on the basis of politics, because them either, you think them now, they're on your side of the political fence. That don't make any sense, right? My position is very simple. If you're wrong, you're wrong. You can't wrong and strong at the same time. And I will leave you on that note. Folks, it has been a pleasure. Again, join us next week, Wednesday, when we do this all over again, as we take a look at some of the issues that is there in Jamaica. And of course, if you're on the website, I invite you. Check out the website and, you know, support support us. Look, go to our shops and our shop and see, look at the merchandise we have there. And of course, there's a whole range of, video archives. We have over 5 years of video archives of our different shows that we present on a weekly basis. Enjoy yourself and share that with your friends. This Sunday, join us, myself and Big G, for another edition of Sunday Scoops. And of course, Big G comes back on Monday with Love Calls, and on Tuesday with Songs from My Youth. It has been a pleasure. Walk good. And, as we say, if you can't be good, be careful. And I leave you with a little piece of Mr. Ernest Smith, as he says, we the people want to know.
We the people want to know just where we're going. Right now, we hands are tied behind the back, while certain people if unbutton. Where do we stand? We have too far to go, not to really know just how we're getting there. And if we're getting anywhere, we have too much to change, not to know the range of possibility and changeability. Violence and crime is commonplace within these said times. No man walk free. Prophecy come closer to fulfillment in these dread times. Why should this be? And as we fight one another with the power